Well, Super Bowl nuts, the Big D is back with a Super Bowl Showdown. Yes, Showdown episode of the Big D podcast. Before I bring in Megan, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page where I'm running faster than Usain Bolt in the 100-meter dash a few years ago with Super Bowl, UFC, you name it. Also, check out the Big D podcast for all your audio listeners on Spotify and Apple. So when my next guest usually is on, we usually talk tiers, but since there are no tiers contests for the Super Bowl, I figured we talk Showdown. So, Megan, we're not talking tiers. We're talking Super Bowl Showdown. Does this feel odd?
Well, yes and no. While I love tiers and do a ton of tiers content, I also absolutely love Showdown. I love the niche contest. I love the Showdown, the tiers, the short slates. So this is in my wheelhouse too. I actually split for another tied for first in the Chiefs Bucks Super Bowl 2 years ago. So, maybe Chiefs is my ticket to winning this Showdown, and that's what my hope is. So we'll see.
Wait a minute. You split what? What did you split?
I chopped one of the tournaments on DraftKings. I mean, it was like a major chop. If you look back at the Super Bowl 2 years ago, it was a massive chop at the top. It wasn't, mine particularly wasn't in like the Millie Maker contest. It was in a different contest, but yeah, I chopped a tournament for first place. I remember the lineup like it was yesterday. So it was definitely duplicated, but definitely fun to win a Super Bowl Showdown. And I'm looking to run it back because that was the last time the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And maybe they're my ticket to winning it this year. So
coincidence?
That I hope.
So we've seen like classic slates, tier slates, but could you explain what a showdown slate is?
Sure. For those that aren't, experienced with the Showdown format, basically you're drafting on DraftKings 6 players, one in the captain, and the captain you're paying 1.5 times the salary. You're also getting 1.5 times their fantasy points. But you have to obviously take that in mind. Paying 1.5 times the salary, if you're taking one of the expensive top guys, that'll obviously give you less money to spend with the rest of your 5 flex players. So, there's a lot of nuances to it. So it's not always just, the highest scoring captain goes in the top. Not necessarily if a lot of optimal guys get there, or a lot of higher priced guys get there. You may need somebody cheaper who has success price per dollar in the top to allow you to get everything you need to hit the optimal. So a lot of nuances and interesting strategies, that can be applied to Showdown contests for sure.
What are the strategies that you have used for Showdown in the past?
I think one of the strategies, again, in Showdown, you want to, there is definitely a chance, as I mentioned with my Super Bowl lineup 2 years ago, that you will duplicate, because again, you're only talking about 6 positions, right? And that's okay. Some people don't want to duplicate at all, and they want to have a super unique lineup, and they may play guys that are sub 5% owned, but they're also, those guys' likelihood of being on the optimal lineup is also very low percentage. So you have to weigh that out. How do you want to play? Obviously, if you want to be more of a cash game player or a single entry player, you're going to play more of the optimal plays. If you want to be more entering the Millie Maker contest, you may want, and you don't want to chop with a lot of people, you may want to play some, sub 10% owned guys. If you are kind of fine in the Millie Maker, maybe you do like a hybrid, and you have some that are a little more contrarian and some that aren't. So there's a lot of different strategies. I kind of apply that to, like, if I'm single entry 3 max type smaller field contests, I'll play more of the optimal plays or optimal captains. If it is a big Millie Maker contest, I might be more contrarian in my captain, or if my captain is, more optimal, I may get more contrarian in strategies. Different strategies you can use. You can overload one team. You could leave money on the table. You could fade a major player. Certainly fading, Jalen Hurts or Travis Kelce or both would make you incredibly contrarian in this slate. So, does that feel scary? Of course. But like, are there ways that they can't get there? Yeah. So, those are the kind of things that you can do to be contrarian in the big field, and hope that if what you think happens, then you might gain an edge. The other biggest thing about Showdown for new Showdown players is you're telling a story. So like every lineup I build in that particular lineup is telling a story. Some might be that the Chiefs win. Some might be that the Eagles win. Some might be that it's a low scoring game. Some might be it's high scoring. Some might be, and it's all how you play. Some people may want to, do all their lineups where they say the Chiefs are winning by, 20 points or something like that. Then it's your choice. It's how you want, whatever your portfolio is, 1, 3, 20, 150, you decide how you want that portfolio to be broken up. I like to kind of hedge my bets, usually, unless I have an incredibly strong stance, and usually build different lineups for different game scripts, basically.
We've seen optimal. All these websites, whether it be Fantasy Labs, Stochastic, Run the Sims. I'm sure they're all Roto Grinders. There are probably 8 million sites where you can get like Showdown or any DFS advice. But what's the website you use for Showdown?
Well, I work for fanspeak.com and Run Pure Sports. So obviously those are my two. I put content out on both fanspeak.com and Run Pure Sports. Run Pure Sports is a daily fantasy website. They have some free content, but there is a lot subscription based. So I use RP at Run Pure is my main go-to. But yeah, there's you find the option that's right for you. But yeah, I use Run Pure as my daily fantasy go-to.
So talk about some of the content. So let me explain some of these contests total price, because it seems like everybody likes money. I heard something yesterday where like the US is going to bet like $16 million, but $16 billion on the Super Bowl.
I saw that tweet. I saw that.
Well, there's a ton of money in these DFS contests. I mean, the $15 million maker. There's a $4,444 another million maker. There's a wildcat with $1.5 million, $1.2 million play action. All these contests, but Megan, what contests are you going to play on Super Bowl Sunday?
Yeah, I'm still deciding which one's outside the Millie Maker contest, the $15 one. I think I'm gonna, I usually do about 20 entries. That's what I do for these niche contests, for tiers, for Showdown, that kind of stuff. Because I like hand building, and I can't hand build obviously 150 lineups. Nor do I want to.
That would take 150 cups of coffee.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I usually build around 20, but on each side, I do play on FanDuel as well. So and so I need to decide how many, outside of the Millie Maker I'll be doing in the different single entry, because I do want some in the single entry 3 max type contests too. And I'm deciding which one of those. I'm still deciding, to be quite honest, of which one of those and how many I'm doing outside of my bullets at the big one, at the big $15 obviously flagship contest.
Yeah, be honest, I'm still deciding. I'm thinking I'm going to enter the $1.2 million play action. I'm going to max that.
Is that the $3 entry?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I'll probably have that too. That and the Millie Maker, and then the 15, and then try some of those single entries is what, and 3 maxes, 5 max is what I'm trying to decide on. Yeah, there's some good ones there though that have some like nice prize structures, flatter payouts and that kind of stuff. And something, if you're worried about like, oh, what if I hit the nuts lineup and I have it in something where I'm in the single entry, well, you could put it in, like, I'm just giving an example, a $15 single entry that has a nice flatter payout structure, but in case it is that crazy lineup, you could also like put it in the $3 too.
let me tell. Yeah, the 12. Yeah, I think there's a $12 single entry
Yeah, I think there's multiple $12 single
where the
entries.
winner where one winner gets like 20 grand, but like 10th place gets 2 grand. So that one, so
That's
that
a nice flatter payout. Yeah.
yeah, that is a way better payout structure because let me tell you, some of these structures, all to put it mildly, I'm not going to say.
Well, they're very top heavy. You know, you're playing for first, and that and a lot of the showdown contests, like when you're playing the big flagship tournaments of it, you're playing for first, and that's why people talk about getting unique, and you know, even being unique if you did get first, and so because that's why if a unique lineup beats out like a train of people, you know, then that train of people is not going to make as much money because the unique lineup's going to win the top prize, or few unique lineups, and then if you're chopping with more people, you know, that's how that whole discussion comes into Showdown.
Are there any contests that you try and stay away from?
When it comes to Super Bowl, you know, our last shot at it for the NFL season, no, I mean, I think there are some people that don't have an interest in playing in like some people call the lotto, you know, because it's so top heavy. But I still like shooting for the lotto, but also again playing some you know, smaller field or single entry 3 max as well. So I want to have that right balance, basically.
So I mean, ultimately, how much money you think you're going to put on Super Bowl showdown lineups between DK and FanDuel?
Oh, I'm still deciding. Still deciding. I gotta think it through. I truly am. I truly am still deciding how much I want to outlay, what my diversification is on each site, how, you know, how much in the Millie Maker, how much in the single entry. I truly am still deciding, but we still got like, you know, 3 or 4 days, so that's good.
How much is what is FanDuel's Millie Maker?
I believe their Millie Maker's $5, but more people, a lot more people. And
What's the how much of the total price does first place get there?
um I don't know what percent. I don't have it pulled up, but
I mean, what's the total price for on the FanDuel Millie Maker?
oh, let me pull it up right now. Let's see here. FanDuel Millie Maker, first my computer's being slow, is it's the big game bull, 611,000 entries, $5, $5,
Must be a third.
yeah, $5 entry fee. But the first place is $1 million.
Must be $3 million prize pool. So that means first place gets a third of it.
Probably.
How much does 10th place get there?
Pulling up now. Of course, I'm getting all these, you know, trying to get me to enter everything right now. Yeah, it's actually because it's Super Bowl 57, it's 2.57 million big game bowl, 1 million to first.
Okay.
And so first place $1 million, second place 100,000, third place 50,000. Yeah, all these tournaments, that's why people call them the lottos. All these tournaments are incredibly top heavy, and again, that's why you're shooting for your, you know, some uniqueness and in the big fields, and some contrarian stands in the big fields.
Yeah, one thing that I've seen in like Super contest, or any showdown contest, whether it be the season opening Millionaire Maker or Super Bowl Sunday, is that people want to use a quarterback captain because they think, oh, he'll score me 1.5 times the points, but he costs 1.5 times as much. The problem with that, though, is generally if a quarterback not named Lamar Jackson plays well, now maybe it's different in this game because Jalen Hurts could run for 350. I mean, could throw for 350 and run for 150, or even Mahomes could be Pat.
Mahomes is Mahomes. Yeah, exactly.
But do you set a limit on how much you quarterback captain? Because I feel like one of the mistakes people make is over captaining quarterbacks.
Yeah, I would agree. I think people used to do it a lot more, and people have pulled back. The field continues to get incredibly sharp with all these sites year after year. Helping them along the way. There's a lot of good content out there, and people continue to get sharper and sharper. So I think they used to captain quarterbacks a lot more than they do recently. I haven't as much recently. I mean, I will say with this Super Bowl, you could captain either quarterback and certainly make a case for either. I certainly think in a single entry and 3 max, that's going to be more common because obviously it's safer, right? There's a better floor there with those guys, and then of course there's still a huge ceiling there. So yeah, I don't do it near as much as I used to either. Don't do it a lot. And probably only would in smaller field this week on Sunday.
I mean, will you set a limit on like how often you quarterback a lineup? Because if you're doing like a 20 max, I mean, what do you think I mean, I don't want to over captain a quarterback, but I feel wrong if I don't have one of Hurts and Mahomes.
Yeah, no, especially I will say, especially on FanDuel, you'll find quarterbacks the more optimal there because they don't have the half point PPR, or excuse me, it is half point PPR. It's not full point PPR. You don't get bonuses, so, it's not like the receivers or running backs are getting bonuses there. So you'll find a quarterback captain optimal more often on FanDuel than you will DraftKings. That's just a flat point to make. As far as a rule, no, I don't have a rule other than I would probably only do it in my single entries, or again, single entry and 3 man. That would be my rule. So I wouldn't do it in the bigger field contests, the lottos, the big field contests, except on FanDuel I may, because again, that way it can be a lot more optimal there. So I know a lot of disclaimers there, but yeah, I mean, I would say if you're running 20 lineups, again, it's got to be your stand on how you see this game playing out too, right? Yeah, you can look at projections, and that's how Showdown is, and that's honestly where we as players can still find an edge. Is there's projections out there. There's all that you're going to listen to a lot of shows this week with a lot of takes, but what's your stand? Do you think Mahomes is going to have a big game and be the MVP? Do you think Jalen Hurts is, and vice versa? If go with what you think. If you feel very strongly about Hurts, then obviously weight some more captain, lineups to him. If you feel more strongly about Mahomes, do that. But yeah, I especially, if you're running 20, yeah, I would allot a couple to the quarterback position, but like you said, not overdo it.
All right, let's break down the rosters. I can't wait. Let me see if I can. So let's start with the Chiefs. I mean, Mahomes 16-5. We know what he can do. Mahomes is great. Kelsey, we know what Kelsey can do. But other than Mahomes and Kelsey, who would be your favorite Chief player, the captain?
That's a great question, because the running back situation makes me nervous. They've activated Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Oh no, are we gonna have this headache like Sean McVay last year with the Rams?
Yeah, I have that. So I don't know. I mean, I was initially interested in Pacheco. And McKinnon was very good to me at the end of the season. And then for some reason, they haven't been utilizing him in the playoffs. So that's very odd to me, what's going on there. But then, you have 2 weeks of Andy Reid to dial up, plays. And if his receivers are more limited, maybe he uses both Pacheco and McKinnon. So I go back and forth, honestly, on the Chiefs running back situation. Do I just stay away because it's too crowded and unclear, and just hope then that not one gets there and they kind of, eat into each other's production? Or do I make a stand and say, oh, I really like Pacheco. I really think McKinnon could bounce back and Andy Reid could dial up some plays for McKinnon. So I'm honestly still deciding about them. But I'm nervous about that just because it's a crowded room now. I don't think Edwards-Helaire is going to be very involved to at this point, but like, who knows? So I don't have a ton of interest at this point. But with that said, by the end of the week, I could try to say, oh, I'm going to make a stand. I'm going to be overweight on McKinnon, or I'm going to be overweight on Pacheco. I'm still deciding there. I certainly think that you can make a case for Juju if you find out he's healthy, if you think he could run in the slot. I think that could be a possibility with Hardman out. I think they manufacture touches for Tony. I think that's an option. The one I don't have as much interest in is MVS. While he had a great game the last week, the perimeter cornerbacks for the Eagles are fantastic. So, it's hard to see him get there against the Eagles cornerbacks. If we're just looking at data and matchups, that's not appealing to me. So I'd say I'd have, maybe a little interest in one of the Chiefs running backs, don't know who yet. Maybe some interest in Juju or Tony, still deciding that. But actually, the sleeper could be Sky Moore. If we find out there's any limitations for Juju Smith-Schuster or Kadarius Toney, you got to think Sky Moore's been getting a lot of practice reps with Mahomes, and he's cheap. He's $3.8K on DraftKings. So I'd say he could be a salary saver for me that could be a little bit lower owned. But again, you got to wait to see, what practice reports, injury reports, is looking like towards the end of the week. Because he is a rookie, and quite honestly, he was not used near as much as we all thought he would. In best ball season, everybody was drafting Sky Moore, and he did not. Yep, me too. Yeah, didn't help your best ball roster at all. Didn't do crap this year. But, he was used a little more in the last playoff game when a lot of the receivers were going down. Is he getting some work with Mahomes? Does Andy Reid have something dialed up for him? If his receivers are more limited, other receivers are more limited, could be interesting. So I'm sorry I don't have a definitive answer there, but the Chiefs, situation outside of Kelsey is incredibly murky at best. And so, I think it's going to be a lot of Kelsey for me, and then filling in some shots on, a Tony here, a Sky Moore here, a Juju here, maybe one of their running backs here or there.
Be honest, if I'm playing a cheap running back, especially in the captain spot, it's probably going to be McKinnon, because except for the AFC Championship game, Pacheco did piddly poop in the receiving game.
Yeah, he did get a lot of catches, more receiving work in the championship game. You're right. And then you're right. Before that, it was just rushing. So yeah, what's it going to be? It's hard.
I mean, based on how I think the game goes, I think the Eagles are going to put a lot of pressure on Mahomes, and McKinnon will be in safety blanket. So maybe in that James White, Shane Vereen role, where he could get like 8, 9, 10 targets.
That would be nice. I mean, I don't know. I played a ton of them the last 2 weeks hoping for that, and it didn't happen. But that's the thing with Showdown is, coaches change the game plans week to week. So, you definitely make a good case where it could happen, so I definitely see a case for that for sure.
I will say I don't really like MVS this week, because everybody's going to look at what he did last week. First off, I think one of us could have been Cincinnati's defensive back, because the Bengals DBs couldn't stop a fly. And 2, Juju, Hardman, and Tony were all out at various stages of the game. So MVS was going to get a huge target load. This game, he doesn't have the Bengal corners on the other side. He's got Darius Slade and James Bradbury. Not exactly 2 scrums.
Nope. Very difficult matchup.
Yeah. I feel like this is a better Juju spot, because he might, if you're playing Juju, maybe you hope that Travis Kelce garners about 9 men over the middle.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. He hasn't done much he hasn't had much in the way of production at all this end of the season, but he did earlier in the season. And if he can get healthy, he's going to need to be another target for Mahomes.
Okay, for the Eagles, I think there are a couple interesting captain wide receivers. I mean, AJ Brown was a monster until the last couple of weeks, but you look at it, the Eagles haven't really needed to throw the ball much. Against Kansas City with Mahomes on the other side, I think this is a good spot for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. I mean, we saw Devontae Smith. I'm sure people in Santa Clara are still arguing he dropped the ball, where we know he
Right.
dropped the ball, but I think this is a good spot for both AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So what do you feel?
Yeah, I agree. Typically, the nice thing is the Eagles' target share is way more condensed than the Chiefs, in that it's just those three guys, really, right? It's Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, and then of course Dallas Goedert at tight end. Typically, because of Hurts's rushing too, and the Eagles' willingness to want to run, you don't typically see two or three going with Hurts. It's usually just one or two. So I think you have to decide the right one or two. But again, we haven't had to see them throw as much a ton this season because they haven't played much. That's been the whole narrative, right? They haven't played anybody. So, going up against Mahomes, maybe throw more. Yeah, I mean, maybe to get there, which two, I don't know. Who has the best matchup? I know I've read that he, since coming back from his injury, he has thrown more successfully to the left side of the field where Devonta Smith runs his routes. But listen, Devonta Smith and AJ Brown are both absolute studs. If you told me, either one went off, I would not be surprised. So, I think you could certainly make a case for both of them. And so I want exposure to both of them.
Who would be one value you would want from either the Chiefs or the Eagles? Potential cheap, maybe not a pump, but like a value play to open up those crazy Hurts lineups, or maybe a expensive Mahomes stack.
Yeah. I'd say for the Eagles, since we were just talking about them, I think it would actually be Kenny Gainwell. I think he's around 5,000. Not super cheap. I mean, you could go all the way down to Boston Scott, but he seems to just be running pure on touchdown variance. So I don't know about that. You are saving some money there, but I'd probably go Kenny Gainwell just because he's just been utilized, and sure, it's in like a lot of these blowouts. Both Gainwell and Scott are getting utilized in a lot of these blowouts, and I don't think this is going to be a blowout. In fact, I'm actually on the Chiefs side, but with that said, I still think out of the two, they trust Gainwell. Gainwell will get on the field, and Gainwell could see some usage no matter what the game script is. So Gainwell on the Eagles side for me, and I'll go ahead and say Sky Moore on the Chiefs side, just because he's, I believe, 3.8K. That's a decent salary savings. You're not going all the way down to that Justin Watson punt range or Noah Gray. Sure, could one of those guys get there for their price? I guess, it just feels flukier. Quite honestly, it's just tougher to trust. But I mean, those are the kind of plays in Showdown that can hit and help you win. I just don't like to do those type of plays a ton. So I would say it would be Sky Moore, in the hopes that, we kind of got a lot of targets the last game when people were out. Hopefully he's gotten a lot of work with Mahomes in practice, and, just whatever the receiver's situation is, hopefully, he's getting some more usage again in the Super Bowl. So I'd say Sky Moore for the Chiefs.
I like Boston Scott at 3K because guess what? He scored 3 touchdowns his last 3 games.
Yeah. So does he keep doing that? That's pretty wild, but he could. So at 3K,
he would if they were playing the Giants.
Yeah, exactly. So
and then I know maybe cheaper than that, but maybe of course Watkins at what is he, 1,400, right?
Yeah, you're saving a lot of money with Quez Watkins, to me, and I think a lot of people that do the Hurts captain are going to feel they have to go down there to save money. Listen, it could work, but since Dallas Goedert's come back, it's really, the target share has really been between those three: Brown, Devonta Smith, Goedert, and Quez Watkins and Pascal are kind of, very tertiary, afterthought targets. But, again, it's a 1 game sample size. He catches one long, I think his ADOT's pretty good. He catches one long one and he could pay off that salary. Again, I don't think I'll do a ton of it just because it feels thinner to me, but I get people's cases for it to save money.
What is the best advice you have for showdown players?
The best advice I would say is kind of what I touched on earlier, but to really sum it up is just to tell the story that you think is going to happen. Like every lineup should tell a story. And you'll hear that if you listen to other Showdown content. This is nothing, I'm not breaking any, new groundbreaking Showdown, strategy, but you should be telling stories. It shouldn't just be like, I'm throwing in all the optimal guys, or I'm throwing in a couple optimal, couple cheap guys. Like the lineup should tell a story and make sense about how you think the game is going to play out. So, and again, if hedge your bets, if you want to, again, build some lines where you think Eagles win, build some lines where you think Chiefs win, build some lineups where one wins by a lot, build some lineups where one wins by a little, tell the story of, who you think is going to win around, what the total will be. And that lineup should kind of support what that story would be. And sometimes it doesn't always have to be like, oh, the winning team is going to have to be the captain and more of the players. Sometimes it can be the losing team, you have 4 of those players and it's just they got there on volume. So, but it still has to make some kind of sense. So that would be my biggest advice, is make sure every lineup you're building tells a story.
All right, Megan. So thanks for telling your story with me today. Hopefully our Super Bowl Showdown lineups will bring us dessert in the desert.
Yeah, I like that pun. Very nice. I agree.